Welcome to Stemiverse Podcast episode 54. In this episode, Peter and Marcus talk with Doonie, aka Geoffrey Benton. Geoffrey was born in Frankston in 1948 when they still shoot horses in the stables near the railway station. Geoffrey attended tech school and became an apprentice as a plastic die maker, toolmaker. He worked as a maintenance fitter, and in later life he became a policeman, then a truck driver, and has also owned several small businesses. He retired in 2012 and went on to discover a range of activities that keep him interested and sometimes frustrated. These include filmmaking, short story writing, making model boats, and generally beavering away in his shed for days at a time. He recently discovered the joys and frustrations of learning how to use a laser cutter and has since filled the house with tiny wooden boxes. Then he was bitten by the electronics bug in the form of Arduino and is now trying to combine all of his skills to one end. Geoffrey has a lifetime love affair with motorcycles, including building, restoring, racing, and touring. In the shed at the moment is a home-built 920cc V-twin Solo and a 1500cc Kawasaki V-twin with a sidecar and trailer. Geoffrey lives in country Victoria with his wife and 2 cats. This is Stemiverse Podcast episode 54. Stemiverse is a podcast produced by Tech Explorations. Our mission is to help educators become awesome at teaching STEM, be it at home or in the classroom. Whether you are a professional or casual teacher teaching in a classroom or a parent or caretaker teaching at home, this podcast brings you the knowledge and experiences of practitioners, academics, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners who are passionate about education and strive every day to help our children prepare for life in a world of radical change and, why not, abundance.
Marcus, how are you, Peter?
Oh, I'm good. It's That's particularly good. Hot today.
It's a good 26-degree day.
Yeah, it feels like summer.
Yeah.
Like I'm here with my shorts, my t-shirt. Like it's the first time this year that I do this.
Yeah, this Chinese global warming conspiracy.
Yes,
it's actually working out for us, right?
Yeah, I love it. Can't wait for summer.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
Joke. Okay.
Oh, joke, yes.
Yeah, good old Trump. Not that we're political today.
Today we've got another special guest for our episode 54, which, wow, we are on the other side of 50. And this time we've got a maker, like a real maker, Doonie Benton from Victoria.
Welcome.
Hey, Doonie, how are you?
Oh, excellent, thank you.
How are you going? How's Victoria these days?
Victoria is good. I'm been fiddling around in the shed today, getting ready for a journey that a few blokes are heading off for a couple of weeks up in the New South.
Oh, is that on a motorbike?
Yeah.
Oh, great. You can tell us all about it because you are a prolific maker. You make all sorts of things, amazing things, I've got to say. And yes. I thought we've got to talk to you. How about you take a few minutes and tell us about yourself, Doonie? And especially, I want to know about your name. I've never known somebody called Doonie before. Tell us about your nickname, how you got that, and take us as far back as you like, and take us to today. And like, what are you doing? What are you working on? And tell us about your shed as well. I want to know everything.
Yep, sure. Okay. Well, you don't want to know about the nickname. That is very politically incorrect. So
we can try us.
One day I'll tell you. Okay. I'll tell you about it. Perhaps another day.
Off the air.
Yeah. Who am I? Look, I'm just Mr. Joe Ordinary, you know. I grew up as a young man with a bunch of mates and a father who was a hunter. So from a very early age, I was away in the bush. And I'm probably as comfortable in the bush as I am in the city, or at this time in my life, actually, I'm more uncomfortable in the city than I am in the bush. So... In saying that, a lot of my time was spent out there on various motorcycles and in various four-wheel drive cars, and often we found ourselves, things would break, you know, back in the early days. We didn't have much dough and the cars weren't very good. So I learnt from an early age how to fix things with nothing. And I think that's the basis of my skills, if you want to call them that, as a maker. It's able to make stuff out of not much and able to nut out the answer to a problem without having to refer too much to somebody else, A
manual, or Google.
Yeah. Although Google's pretty handy.
Yeah.
Google's pretty handy. Nothing like a bit of research. So anyway, I've been making things all my life.
So like the classic maker. You're the classic hands-on person. Like something breaks, so you'll fix it.
Yes, that's it. If it breaks, I fix it. And you know that I was an apprentice toolmaker in my early days. Well, the young bloke that I went through that apprenticeship with turned out to be a lifelong friend, my best mate for like 60 years. And he turned into a mechanical engineering genius, whereas I was a fairly adequate policeman. So the skills that I gained were purely useful, whereas he was like a genius. But where we work well together is that my genius was finding stuff nowhere. And so if we had something break down, he'd look at it. Like, for example, we were somewhere and one of the cars boiled, the engine boiled, and he said, oh, well, we need some black pepper. So I just walked up and down all the camps in the area and pinched all their black pepper, brought it back, we tipped it in the radiator, started up. What happens with the pepper is it expands and it fills the hole in the radiator, and away we went.
Oh, seriously? So you use pepper to plug a hole in the engine, in the radiator?
In the radiator, yeah.
How big's the hole?
Oh, they're only minute. You don't need much, You just need a bit of pressure that pokes a pinhole.
Yeah.
We're talking old brass cap radiators, etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work in a new car, right? But
how far can you drive on pepper?
Oh, well, that car got back to Melbourne and we were up at Albury.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll take it to the next city at least.
Yeah.
And then some.
So that's one of you two work together. He was able to solve a mechanical problem. You could find the practical aspects of procuring what you needed.
I could get the stuff. Yep. We were stuck somewhere in a little town called Walwa, which is also up near there, on a Sunday afternoon. One of the blokes, his coil broke in his Falcon. So I just went for a bit of a drive around the town and I saw an old Falcon on the side of the road, knocked on the bloke's door, asked him if he wanted to sell the car. He said he did. I said, how much? He said, 250. I said, how much for the coil? so it cost us a slab of beer and we fixed our car and off we went again.
Cheers. Today we just call it NRMA and
yes.
We're not going to even consider doing any of that. But those were totally different times as well, right?
Be fair, the cars these days.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Little black boxes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like I think about my first car
to fix it.
You could actually go in and move stuff around and area to work. And now the cars, they're sealed.
Yeah, but I guess you said earlier, Doonie, that you are like a person of the bush, or you're not a city person. Do you find that your lifestyle requires you to be resourceful like that and to be able to get things fixed without having all the tools and bells and whistles that city folk might have?
Not so much. I've got a pretty good shed.
Yeah.
But I'm able to do almost anything here now, and it's a blessing. I haven't always had all that stuff. When I retired and came here, a little sort of creative light clicked on, and I had a lifetime worth of spare motorcycle parts stacked up. And I thought, oh, bugger it, I'll go in a different direction. So I sold them all and got $5,000 for all them bits and spent that on tools for the shed. So I got a pretty good shed now.
What is your favourite tool?
Oh, I have to be the laser.
Oh, that's a new one, isn't
So
it?
you got a laser cutter?
Yes.
Carbon dioxide, water cooled. How many watt?
It's 4 watt diode.
Okay.
Yeah, Australian one.
And what can you cut with that?
I cut 4 mil ply, 3 ply, light ply.
Mm-hmm.
And it's light and it's strong. And I can make anything out of it.
We can see some pictures here on your post on Facebook. Did you actually design the plywood design that eventually got cut in the laser cutter, all those bits and pieces? Did you design the whole lot together yourself?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, got to tell us what kind of tool do you use to design all that?
There's a bit of software came with it, with the laser cutter called Cut 2D.
Right.
So I learned how to use that. and it's got a CAD drawing program in it, which is really quite respectable for the fact that it's a piece of free software. And the ability to solve problems sideways is what makes it work specially. I'm more able to get to the bottom of the problem by going sideways. You know, like if you come to a brick wall, why doesn't it work? Instead of possibly solving the problem according to the plans, I'll go around the corner and come in a back door and fix it, if you understand that.
You will look for alternatives. Like what would guide you to that side solution, perhaps? Like how can you triage a problem, I guess, in order to figure out what's the most economical, efficient, or even possible way to solve it?
Well, the first rule is always go and look at the last thing you mucked around with, because that'll probably be where the fault is. I'm just trying to think of an example. I had a new piece of software became available called Lightburn. So I installed that, but it wouldn't work. And then I figured out that it wouldn't work because I had XP in the old computer.
Oh.
So then I went back, what do you call it, the program before? I put one of those on the...
Before Windows XP?
Well, I went back to a program that works on XP. So rather than, I guess the sideways thing is I could have spent a lot of money and upgraded the computer. I just downgraded the software.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I would upgrade the computer.
Fair enough.
There you go.
It works.
So the downgraded software works just as well. A young man one day, I was talking to him about computers, and I said I should upgrade this computer, and he said, well, when you bought that computer, how good was it? And I said it was perfect. It was the state of the art when I bought it. And he said, did it do everything you wanted it to do? And I said, yes. He said, well, is it still doing that? And I said, yes. And he said, well, what do you want to upgrade for?
Because, there's new things that you could be doing with the newer
Oh,
stuff.
well, I mean,
Yes,
naturally
yeah.
I do upgrade stuff, but what I'm getting at is that if the stuff works when you're using it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good argument, because, it needs change over time as well.
If you freeze it in time,
Yeah.
it will always run nicely, right?
Hey, Doonie, I'd like to get back to the things that you're working on, like the laser cutter, but I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about your early retirement, because I know that you've done a lot of things in your life. So you've been a policeman, as you said. We can talk about that if you want.
No, that's okay.
Then you became a truck driver, and you had a few other businesses. So you've done quite a few things, and eventually you retired back in 2012.
Yep.
And since then, you've equipped a shed with amazing tools. You build stuff, and you're learning new things constantly. What drove you to choose that type of retirement instead of playing golf, I guess, traveling the world and things like that?
Okay.
You do still travel, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. I've got
to become,
Why not relax? No, I can't relax. I've got a brain that needs to be exercised and fingers that need to be fiddling.
Yes, right. And you've always been like that, right?
Yes, always.
Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
So you finally found your freedom to actually now learn what you want and build what you want.
Correct.
Spend your time in any way you like.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I've got stacks of model boats out in the shed, and I finished up. I had to sell them to make some room.
How did you get started? Like, what was the first, I don't know, like reaching that age where you can think about, hey, what would I like to do for the next, I don't know, 30, 40 years?
Yeah,
let's make it happen.
Somebody gave me a kit when I was a little boy, probably about 8 or 9, of a model boat, and I built that. And then many, many years later, after that, I had, father, wife, kids, jobs, work. Most of my hobbies were revolved around motorcycles and four-wheel drives. But towards maybe in my early 60s, I took up model boat making again, just as a sort of a intellectual exercise. And then when I got down here to Bryagalong and finally had perfect man shed, I built a couple. I built that paddle steamer you may have seen, and I've got probably 4 or 5 others on the way. One of them is a model of a 80-foot MTB torpedo boat, which all of the internal pieces I cut on the laser and all of the planking I cut by hand. And that's going to be a nice thing, but I've decided that it's not 80 feet long, it's only 40 feet long, and I'm building it as a gentleman's race boat.
Okay, so you can actually get into that thing, right? Like when I hear model, I think like of something I can put on my desk and hold it on one hand. But you actually build big things. Yeah,
I do. I like them big. The gentleman's racer is 1.2 metres long. It's powered by a couple of electric motors, but in the back of it, it's got a couple of V12 Allison motors. And I came across a piece of hardware in the USA, had it sent out, or Canada actually, and it plays sounds. So that's hooked up to the remote control, so that when you press start on the remote control to make the electric motor work, it starts up the hardware, which generates the sound of two V12 engines starting up and blasts that out at 98 decibels through a great big speaker in the front of the boat.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that was the sideways exercise. I couldn't figure out how to fix it, and I just beavered away at it for about probably 2 years, and it's working now. It's fine. So that's why I think I've got so many projects out in the shed that aren't finished. If I hit a hurdle, I put it away and go on with something else.
How much of the stuff that you build is built on, say, instructions that you can find in a box or by Googling it, and how much requires you to come up with the designs and the solutions to the problems that are inevitable? It's like 50-50 or...
Yeah, there's a lot of free plans available on the internet. So the trick is to find them. Once you find them, obviously they're not all PDFs, so you've got to hunt around and then convert them to a PDF so that you can put that into the software and change that so that you can make your G-code to cut the bits out of. And sometimes they don't fit, like it's an A3 laser cutter, and some of the parts are too big, so you've got to cut swizzle lines across them and then join them again.
Oh, so what you're saying is that like you can find designs
yes,
on the internet, but then you need to figure out how to convert them into a format that your laser cutter can use.
Yeah, somebody might have a set of plans to build a model boat that's, say, a foot long.
Yeah.
So I just 4 times that in the CAD program. There's a lot of other stuff you can do with a laser cutter too. I haven't even shown you half of them yet, but I will if you want one day.
Yeah. Right. Well, you do post some very interesting videos up there. So.
Yeah. I just as an intellectual exercise, one day I found a photograph of a dog, and I discovered that I could engrave that, 3D engrave it. It's only it's like a millimetre or so deep into the wood, but it's 3D engraved.
Yeah.
So I engraved that photograph of the dog, and then I thought, well, if I could cut that dog out, I could glue it onto another thing so I'd be able to have a genuine 3D piece, you know what I mean? So I did that, but the algorithms of the software was different to the algorithm of the hardware. Of the piece that did the cutting was different to the piece that did the engraving. So I had to calculate the relationship between those two and then convert the picture so that when I cut it was the same as the one that engraved. Once I'd figured out how to do that, I did a tutorial on it and then forgot it and moved on to something else.
So let's say that you have the same problem again in the future. Would you remember how you've done it the first time? Do you keep notes of you?
No, I made a tutorial and shared it on the laser cutter website to give the other blokes a go.
Right. So you know where to find it.
So if money were not an option, were not a thing, what would your perfect workshop look like?
Oh, wow. A painted grey floor. It'd be about 100 acres, and there'd be a little corner in the corner, that'd be the bedroom.
Yeah. So you'd sleep in your shed.
Yeah. My shed's pretty good. There's not a lot wrong with my shed. I've got it divided up. It's a 4-car garage with a piece on the back that I built. So that's where I've got all my small department. The laser cutters in there and all the hand tools and small tools. And then around the other side, one of the bays has got woodworking material in it and a big 8x4 bench and space to park a few bikes.
So that's where you built your electronics. I'll talk about that later. But also your engines for your motorbikes. Everything happens in that shed.
Yes, but I haven't done much on the motorcycles in the shed now. That was all years ago. I pretty much got out of that now in terms of developing. I still do a fair bit of work on a sidecar because they are an evolving machine.
Oh, how so? How are they evolving?
Sidecars don't drive like motorbikes and they don't drive like motorcars. They're a total entity of their own, and they put stresses and strains in places that the motorcycle isn't used to, so things constantly break and you've got to fix it, and you've got to be on top of them all the time. But look, that's another part, like I said before, I like to fix things on the fly. I carry enough tools and bits and pieces and parts. Like the last time I went away, a little thing, the exhaust pipe popped out, so I just pulled up on the side of the road, knocked the pipe out, figured out what the problem was, bumped a few holes in it with a chisel and stuck it back together again, and it got me into town where I could get it welded up. But I love the ability to nut out the problem and fix it and keep going.
Yeah. Would you say that there's like a built-in, I guess, feature of your personality? Did you become like that because you lived out in the bush and you had to be resourceful? Did you train into, your ability to solve problems through your life experience? Or could it be all of that?
Yes, it is.
So just try to see, all of that.
Yeah, it certainly is, and now it's I take advantage of that by going places that are more difficult than you would normally think. For example, I'm going up to just up near Bathurst in a couple of days. It'll take us 2 days to get there, because we'll be going all back dirt roads all the way up. We hardly touch the bitumen.
On a motorbike?
Yep.
Yeah, great.
With a trailer on the back.
Well, so you'll be towing a trailer on your motorbike?
Yes.
Don't forget the sidecar.
All your supplies.
Yep, and the sidecar. We can go bush and stay bush for a week.
So once you get there, did you camp?
Yes, there's a sidecar motorcycle rally, which is a gathering of people who ride sidecars at O'Connell, which is just below Bathurst.
Yeah.
And then we're going to keep going up and do that country in the back of the Western Escarpment there behind the Blue Mountains. Byland, something like that. Sunny Corner, Dark Corner, Truro River, all that.
That's a great way to combine, the outdoors with the machines.
Yeah, we are. Look, the bloke I'm going with, the two blokes I'm going with are very similar brain thing as me. Love the bush, love the out, love the dirt, love the no people. No, we don't do tourist things. We don't stay in motels. We don't go to cafes for coffee. We're on the road in the bush all the time.
Yeah, so when it's time to eat, you just
we've got everything. We cook ourselves.
Light up a fire and start a fire and you go out hunting.
No, look, I've done that, but I packed up all the guns and put them away.
Yeah, play safe. Now, I'd like to get into electronics and discuss electronics with you. I know that you've been playing around with Arduinos for, not as long as you have with motorbikes, but
very short
after
time.
your retirement, right? Yeah.
No, only a couple of months.
Really? That's all? Yep. Because I can see from the things that you post on Facebook that you actually are designing really interesting things. So tell us about it. Like, how did it start, and like, what is your favorite, construction? The thing that you're most proud that you built?
This is possibly amusing. I have a small problem with my legs called Restless Leg Syndrome. And the doctor diagnosed a pill to help fix that. It alters the dopamine in your brain and makes it so that your legs still twitch, but you don't know it, so they stop twitching, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And the side effect of the dopamine is that it turns you into a person who likes to buy stuff. So over a period of about a month, I've got more remote control four-wheel drive things up in a corner of my shed than you can poke a stick at. And the missus came out one day and saw them all out there and went crook. And I said, I don't know, I can't help it, I don't know what's going on. So she went in and she did a bit of research and discovered that the drugs were making me buy stuff. So anyway, I went down the pub and talked to the boys about that, and they all want to know what the drugs are called.
Yeah. Give it to the customers.
Anyway, that stuff's all remote control stuff. So I've looked at it all up there, and I thought, wow, what am I going to do with all this? Now that I've diagnosed the problem, and I'm not going to buy any more of it. And I thought, what can I do with this stuff that's different? I thought I better learn how to use electronics, and then I'll pull them all apart and make other stuff out of them. So I jumped on the computer, then started to do some research, and I narrowed down Arduino as being the direction of many directions that I would probably choose to go.
What is Arduino?
Arduino is it's the device that makes other stuff do stuff.
Wow, that's a good description, Doonie. Yeah. So it's a thing that you use to get other things done.
That's correct.
It doesn't do much on its own, right? You need to hook it up to other things.
That's it. That's my understanding. Yeah. I'm a chimpanzee when it comes to electronics.
Yeah.
But I figured I might learn it. Initially I started off with one of those make block things, and I've still got it in the shed. And I looked at that, and the reason I purchased that was because the way that you write your code is you just slide little blocks into place. And I thought that was going to be a pretty useful thing. And it also has the ability to generate a sketch at the same time. So I looked at that and I thought, well, why don't I just write these sketches instead of doing that? Can I just go back for one moment to something that might be interesting?
Sure.
A million years ago, I had a very small Macintosh computer, a little grey box about as big as a tissue box, the very first Macintoshes.
Yeah. Was it a Macintosh Plus?
I don't know. I don't remember, but it was a junior thing. Anyway, a piece of software that came with it for free was called HyperCard.
Oh, yes, HyperCard. All the memories you bring back.
Yeah, so I got stuck right into that HyperCard and learnt it very thoroughly. I thought it was a fascinating piece of software.
Yeah.
And years later, I started to see these things happening on the web called hyperlinks and etc. And I thought to myself, I've been playing with bloody hyperlinks all my life. Where's this coming from? And I often wonder whether that HyperCard might have some basis on the web. Anyway, what it means is that I had some idea of my mind about things that if this, then that, and etc., how to debug and all of that sort of stuff. So it's always been cluttering around in the back of my brain. So when the sketch ability came up, and then I started to look at the thousands and thousands of little pieces of hardware you could get to go with the Arduino to make it do all sorts of things, I thought to myself, wow, I'm in paradise here if I can make this bloody thing work.
Yeah.
What have you found most challenging with the Arduino?
So far, the issue was to get 4 servos working. I've got 3 of those working now, and I have been a little bit busy and haven't gone back to it yet, but I think it might be the pot that's up the shit, not the hardware, not the Arduino.
Damaged potentiometer. Yep.
Yeah, because when you learn how to fix things sideways, I pulled all the leads off and just swapped them all around as if it was a spark plug. I just pulled all the leads off all the servos and isolated the fact that it was a potentiometer, not a servo.
Right.
Yep. So I haven't been back to that potentiometer and gone over it with the multimeter yet, but that'll be next.
You can also print out the readings from the potentiometer.
On the Arduino.
On the Arduino, out at the serial port.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I'm learning stuff, but I'll try and find out how to do that now that you've told me. In fact, I'll write it down.
Oh, there's a really good course on this Arduino stuff. It's
yes.
Tech Explorations Arduino step by step.
Yeah, I didn't know about it. I'll just ask me to. I'll explain.
Yeah, I'm working through the first of Peter's courses at the minute, and I've already got the second one there, waiting till I finish the first one.
Yeah, the second one talks about servos and other types of motors.
Yeah.
So I find it useful. I wanted to comment on your craftsmanship as well, which is amazing. Like, we're looking at the picture of the Arduino with the potentiometers connected on a breadboard, but I can see that like you've got it nicely on probably plasterboard. You've mounted the potentiometers on another piece of wood.
Yeah, that's a little laser cut gizmo. Everything is laser cut.
That's in a nice angle, so you've got your user interface there, and behind it there's another box on which you've got leads coming in and out and a few...
Yeah, that's a power out box.
Yeah, so you've made all that, right? You've designed and made it and put it together. Yeah.
I had a transformer laying around that I pulled out of a caravan, transformed 240 to 15. So then I got that other little gizmo that changes whatever it does. The 15 volts from 3 to 15. So I can wind them up or down, and then I made that other little box that's got every kind of way you can get power out in that sort of 15 volt range, because there's all that four-wheel drive stuff I play with as well.
So that box is a power supply.
Yep, that's just power out.
Nice. So just completely like adapted to your needs.
Yep.
It's not something you can buy.
I can get power out about 6 different ways.
Wow. Hey, Doonie, I'd like to talk about some of your other hobbies, like very interesting things such as short story writing.
Yep.
So you're a novelist, essentially. You make films as well. Tell us a bit about that. Like, where does it come from? Like, I can see all the technical stuff. I can connect them to your background, to your life out of the city, in the bush. What about like filmmaking? What do you do, and how did it come out?
You remember when little Johnny Howard decided to give us all $900?
Oh, yes.
Was it John Howard? Was that...
what was it labelled?
Rudd. That was Rudd during the GFC.
Well, whoever it was, thanks very much. I went out and bought a camera.
One.
I went out and bought myself a Canon EOS, whatever it is, 1000D. And then I started taking photographs with it, and I thought, wow, this is a bit of fun. And then I had it around one day and I saw, GoPro, what's one of them? So I bought a little GoPro and stuck it on the motorbike, and then suddenly I've got video footage of nearly every road in Victoria, as seen from the eyes of a motorcyclist. So I started turning them into movies. Got another GoPro, so soon I had 2 GoPros and a still camera, and I started to take still photos and put them together in slideshows and then combine them with the video. So it just grew exponentially from there. I suppose I've got 100 small movies on my YouTube channel now.
All right. Are those movies like your travel? So do they have, I guess, a storyline behind them? Like
they've evolved. They've evolved, and they evolved up to about 12 months ago when I made my first scripted story. I wrote about 12 short stories over a period of time, and one of Marilyn's friends is a musician from her old band, and he was here one day, and I used to practice telling those stories to people, so I'd read them. And the ladies like people to read stories to them, so all the wives of the band members were sitting out the back, and I was reading a couple of stories to them, and Graham said, you should record those. So I said, okay. So I recorded 12, I think, and they're on a CD here. And he put a little bit of music behind them, and they're professionally recorded, and they sound okay. So I took one of those and used that narration and took some video to put over the narration so that the narration told the story with the video behind it. So it was a story about a bloke who got his divorce papers and decided that he was going to go down the pub and celebrate. And when he's down there having a quiet pot, minding his own business, he looked across the room, as you do occasionally in your life, and he looked into the eyes of a woman, and his head went boom. And he thought, oh no, I don't want any more of this. So he went and sat down, had a beer. Anyway, I wrote the story about that, and we made a movie about it.
Great.
So that was the first movie we made as a scripted movie. And then what happened? When we got to Bryagalong, hope I'm not boring you guys.
No, go for it. I've got questions, but yep.
When we got to Bryagalong, my wife and I both retired, and when in our life we had been people who lived in towns and larger communities and didn't become involved in them. We became involved with our own friends. But when we became here to Bryag, which is a very small town, we knew that we would have to get involved in the community if we wanted to fit. So Marilyn joined the CFA, and I joined the Community House Committee, and I'm now the treasurer of the Community House. And as the treasurer, I one day thought to myself, one day I can get a few more dollars in for the Community House. So I thought, I know, I'll get a grant. So I hunted around to see what sort of grants were about, and there was a thing that was to do with aged people, Wellington aged initiative or something like that. And I applied to them for a grant to do a project, and they said, "What's the project?" And I said, "I don't know yet. How much are you going to give me?" So they said, "Well, we'll give you some amount, but you've got to tell us what the project is, and it's got to involve senior citizens." So I went away and had to think, and then I thought, "Oh, I know, I'll make a movie." So I got a crew together, called it the BCH Movie Crew, and we went off and made a little movie last year with a budget of $1,500. It's a 15-minute movie about the Bryagalong RSL. The Bryagalong RSL, in many, many years ago, the men used to meet down at the town hall, and after the meeting they'd have a few beers. But the councillors one day came over and said, "Look, you can't be drinking no alcohol in our town hall." So they said, "Bugger that," and they went across the road and sat in the back of a truck after their meetings, and then that was parked outside the shop. We're talking about 1940s here. And then the bloke said, "Oh, well, you can come in use a room in the back of the shop," and then they did that, and then they decided, "Bugger it, we'll build our own." So somebody gave them a block of land in town, and they were bushies, so they went bush and they cut logs and they built them back, brought them back to town, and they built a log cabin here in Bryagalong. Now, the first president of the Bryagalong RSL was a bloke called Hugh Chandler, something like that, Lieutenant Colonel. He was the bloke that was in charge of that battle in Kokoda in New Guinea.
Oh, yep.
And when that battle was over, his opposite in the Japanese army was laying dead on the battlefield, and one of Hugh's blokes picked up the sword and gave it to him. And that sword is now in the RSL log cabin. So we had all these little weenie stories that we could put together. So we interviewed the surviving relatives of those men. We put together the movie, including old black and whites, and then we shot vignettes of certain pieces of it, like the bloke sitting in the back of the bus having a beer and things like that. And then we combined the whole lot into a little 15-minute movie, and it went nuts.
Wow, so it's like the history of the town.
That was the history of the Bryagalong RSL, yeah.
If somebody wants to see that movie, where can they see it?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't put it up on YouTube yet. I've got copies of it here. We're still thinking about what to do with it. So I don't know. We don't know what to do with it.
Put it on YouTube.
So how did it go nuts?
Well,
I might be a man of my generation. I'm just wondering how it goes
like
nuts
it was
without being on YouTube.
the Bryagalong community has a film festival here every couple of years. And
all right.
so we put that little movie on at that film festival, and they gave us an hour to show it. It was only a 15-minute movie. So we used 3/4 of that to talk about it. We filled the town hall to the roof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'd love to see it. Consider putting it on YouTube.
Look, I do have to think about that. But I have to have a bit of a chat to the group first. We've started on another one. We're going to do it on the railway line. So we've got another grant application in for some good movie equipment, cameras and stuff. Last year we just did it with DSLRs and etc.
Can I ask you, so creating a movie with, say, 10, 15 people is not really something that I'd know how to do, right? Unless you've got some experience in movie making. There's quite a few things there, like how do you write the scenario and the script, and then there's the technology there, and then how do you put all of the footage together and combine it with the music and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot there. Did you have to learn all that on the fly, just like everything else, pretty much? Or did you have somebody with experience to help you out?
I never said I knew how to do anything. I just do it.
Yeah.
It's just...
So not knowing is not a problem, right? You just go ahead and do it.
Just do it. If there's an issue, solve it.
So you had your GoPros. You had 2 GoPros. You had, I think, you said a Nikon or something like that?
No, I just... Can I tell you another little story?
Yeah.
A million years ago, I was a very junior policeman at Seymour. And in those days, we used to work one up in the car and one in the office. So your communication was with the man back in the office via the radio. And in those days, our nearest backup was Broadmeadows, Bendigo and Benalla. So I'm out in the divisional van one night, and I get a call to an accident on the Hume Highway, and I'm very junior policeman, several months.
Just fresh.
Pissing down with rain, freezing cold, middle of the night. I got my great big navy blue coat on and my hat and my gloves. and a blue light on the roof of the van. So I drive there and there's a semi-trailer upside down. There's cars everywhere, people walking around. It's pissing down with rain. And I thought to myself, I don't want to do this. I just want to go home. But I didn't. I got out, opened the door, started to walk forward, and something happened. The people all started to walk towards me, you know. And what happened was that I realised that they weren't coming to see Geoffrey Benton. They were coming to see a person in authority who was going to help them and who was going to solve all their problems and get the show on the road. And at that moment, I learnt how to take charge of things, because I didn't have to know how to do anything. I only had to know how to get somebody else to do something. So it was simply, you know, has anybody here got any medical experience? Yes. Well, can you look after them? Can you jump in the back of the divisional van? There's some flares in there. Get them, take them back down the road. Somebody get on the phone and get the tow truck out here. I jumped on the radio, got my bloke to get some help coming, and it was just a matter of walking around quietly and talking to people and sorting things out.
So that sounds like you were the one to take charge, right? To step in and say, okay, let's get organised here.
Yeah, and that's been part of my history all my life after that. You know, if I come across any kind of a disaster, I'm the one that goes cool and figures it out.
Yeah.
So in situations like that,
person can do. And
yeah, like when I did that movie, I just got a group of people together, and like we're talking retired senior citizens, and just because you're a retired senior citizen doesn't mean you're a dummy. These guys are very talented people, and I just had to work out what their talents were and get them to use them.
Yeah.
We found a writer. I found a former film producer. All sorts of people all got on board, and they all got their jobs.
That's great. That's good advice.
Yes, you don't need to have it. Yeah, I like the line. You don't need to necessarily know how to do something, but it's how to get others to do it.
Yep.
I guess it's like as makers, we really need to know and be good at using and understanding our tools. But
yeah, we do.
We need to know who's around us, like the people that are around us.
Yep. But I think what you got to do, like that tower crane that I'm building at the moment. People say to me, "What are you going to do?" Another issue. Either of you guys retired? No.
No.
Okay. An issue that happens is that there's a peak. There's a top of a hill. And when you when you retire, you're at the top of the hill. And on your way up to the top of that hill, you're earning money. From when you retire, you're spending it. So when you're on the way up the hill, every morning you wake up, you think, how can I turn this into $1? How can I do that? You know, you get an idea, you think, oh, whoopee, I could make that. I might be able to sell it. So like Peter, you're selling your talents, and, you know, one day you figured out how you could do that. Well, when you get up to the other end, you don't. You don't wake up in the morning and think, how can I sell that? So when I make stuff at my time, I'm not making it to do anything else that entertain myself, teach myself, and to achieve an intellectual thing with my hand skills. I'm mixing the intellectual skills with my hand skills. Yeah.
And the purpose is totally for the heck of it. You want to learn.
That's it. I just want to learn.
Your motives are for the sake of knowledge.
You know, earlier in the show there, you said, "Why do you do what you do now instead of go off and play golf?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but too many people work their butts off during their life, and then they retire and die in a couple of years because they got no idea how to retire.
Absolutely.
You have got to turn that 24-hour period that you get every 24 hours into something productive. If you don't do something productive, there is no point in getting up.
Absolutely. You need to make the most of your time, your skills, and
and spread them out. You know, don't just do the same thing.
Yeah,
spread it out. Do lots of things.
That is something that I'm not at that stage yet, but it's something that occasionally I think about, like what would I like to be doing in 20 years from now, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, like, what I'm doing now. Actually,
there's no reason to stop.
Like something that I really like about you, Doonie, is like you shared, you are learning, like you go out to a group and you say, you know, out loud, I have no idea how this is working and this and that and the other. And so no problem. But I'm trying and I'm really interested. And probably usually a couple of days later, you've got a solution.
Yep.
People will pitch in, but that is perfect. I think that's really a good example that I would like for myself when that thing that it's called retirement eventually comes. I see retirement as freedom. Personally, it's what you said. You don't need to earn money anymore. It's now it's totally about what you want to learn and what you want to experience. And that's, I think, if people at that past working life age can achieve, they're going to have a lot of really good years ahead. Now, I've seen it many times of the golf thing that I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
It's just so common.
I guess the question is, are you any good at golf?
No.
See, that also helps as well.
No.
You know where your strengths are.
No, I don't do any of those things. I'm motorcycling. The wife and I like to travel on our caravan, and the rest of the time in the shed.
Well, tell us, maybe we should get into quick rapid fire questions and just get a few tiny bits of wisdom out of you. For example, what's your favorite book?
Well, we should have a favourite author, I think.
Or author, sure.
Yeah, I really like fiction. I don't read much fact. I like mystery stuff. There's a bloke called John Sanderson, or Sandford, I forget now. Doesn't matter. Yeah, he's awesome.
We'll find it.
So it's all that sort of mystery stuff, police procedurals, I suppose you'd call them.
Oh, I guess, does it have anything to do with your filmmaking interests?
I'd say more being a policeman.
Yeah,
Or
look,
police.
I'm
You
not
combine all
sure.
that.
When I was a little boy, my mum used to say I'd read the label off a jam tin. Like, even when I'd sit down to eat me Wheaties, I'd read the packet.
Oh, you like reading?
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
probably 5 or 6 library books a week.
I understand that. It's funny, when I used to teach in university, the only kind of books that I'd read were textbooks.
Yeah,
I
of
just
course.
couldn't touch any other book. But now that I've stopped doing that, I'm now 5 years since I've taught, I now read a lot.
Yep.
So it's that love for reading has has come back. Marcus.
If you could put one line on a billboard, what would that be?
Oh, good one.
If I could put one...
One sentence on a billboard, what would it be?
So like a traffic, like a highway
Oh,
billboard.
yeah. One
you
line
can
was-
take
wow,
take hold
what a
of it
question.
and put something on it.
I'm stealing it from somebody else. Peter knows who.
If I could put one line on a billboard... Don't know. I don't know. I don't think my personality cares about that.
It could be like something like advice that you'd like to give people. Now, advice, I see it as not like you should do this, not in that way, but, you're talking to yourself. And
I don't know. Look, if I did, I'd just think of something at the moment. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to give you a proper thing. 'Cause I don't know.
how about you? I'm not putting this in your mouth, obviously, but just as inspiration, find your own shed.
Find your own shit.
Yeah.
I like
Something like that, maybe.
Make sure you're on the right side of the grass.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think whatever I did say would have to do with being alive, not dead. And I think the other thing I'd like to say to everybody in the planet that's ever going to get to the stage where they retire, for God's sake, have something to do.
Yeah, life doesn't end at 68?
It
I
does
think
not.
68 is the retirement age. No, for many people, it actually just starts there. And you just need to see that as another phase of your life. Yeah,
Yep.
as we're going through phases. Okay, let's do one more.
Okay.
Well, what advice would you like to give to your 12-year-old self? If you could go back in time and, find yourself when you were 12, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, dear me, 12. I always remember the best advice my old man gave me when I was a kid, when I was about that old. And I use it all the time. It's always make your bed before you get into the piss.
Always make your bed.
Before you get into the
Alcohol.
So that means when you're out camping, right?
I got it. Yeah.
And this is what I do all the time. I get off my motorbike and I put up a tent in. These days I don't do that. I've got a bed that I tow behind me. But when you pull up, you make your tent before you get into the booze.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, how would somebody, and now we're not talking about you specifically, right? But about, say, a 12-year-old neighbor's child, or my son, who's not 12, but he's almost 12. How would a 12-year-old modern kid translate that?
A
For their own
12-year-old
lives.
Oh, a 12-year-old modern kid.
Yeah,
Gee whiz.
and I don't think that modern kids are any different to like 16 or 17 kids. I'm just saying today, it's like, yeah, they've got various issues to deal with. They've got the internet, they've got YouTube, they've got
Yeah.
exams. Yeah. Every generation has got its challenges.
I don't know. I am a person who yearns for the old days. When I write often about years and years ago, and I try to do it. You may have noticed I have a language of my own, which is quite old, and the words that I use and lots of the expressions that I use, I would be happy to be living back then. By the same token, I'm astonished by the wonderful things that are happening in our universe at the moment, and I hope that things keep being wonderful. But I don't know what I'd say. I haven't got a lot of faith in people, young people.
That's a harsh
I
thing
know
to
that
say.
they're going to grow up and be my prime minister, and they're the ones that are going to make the money. But, I just still don't have a lot of faith in them. I see these little dickwits walking around with their pants around their ankles. And I think to myself, for Christ's sake.
Yes.
Is that a rugby league
I've got to
reference?
say that I agree with you on this one, Doonie. It annoys me so much, but that's how it is. And, you got to judge people, and especially the newer generations, not with our criteria and our standards, but, with theirs. So every generation is different. I'm just listening to a lot of history, and like it goes back thousands of years, or 1,000 years, or even 200 years ago, and a lot of the things that people used to do back then seem to us so awkward and just bad, really blandly bad. But got to be judged by the standards of their time. So. There's only a couple of standards that I want at least my kids to implement in a way, is look after the world, since we only have one, and by that I mean the planet, right, and the natural environment. Look after that, make sure you don't destroy it, and be productive. And I think the rest just comes out of that as I said, add on, or as a bonus. But I do find that attire should be a bit better.
Yeah.
Attire could be better.
The young people today can't do what we did. Unfortunately, years and years ago, I remember there was me and my mate Grumpy. We're probably just early 20s, I suppose. We're way in the back of nowhere, at the back of Wangaratta, going away shooting for the weekend as per usual. We pull up at a gate, and there was a bloody great ant hill there, and my mate Grumpy didn't like ants. He used to burn them with magnifying glasses. Anyway, he got the jar of petrol out the back of the ute, and he tipped it down all the ant holes, and then he set fire to it and blew them up. Well, the downside of that was that a million very angry ants landed on him after that. But this was the norm for us. We used to blow things up. We would we had the skills. We were toolmakers. We could make cannons. And we made cannons, and we blew things up. But you can't. These kids these days wouldn't get away with that.
Oh, I get so many stories. Yeah.
They just can't talk about them these days.
We used to deal in handguns. Like we made our own handguns.
Too, and now you can 3D print them. Yeah,
No,
I know.
you
Which
can't,
is
Peter. You can't 3D print.
no, it's actually
Not in New South-
download the plans.
You can't-
in America. Sorry,
Yeah, in America, you can. In New South Wales,
Yeah.
not even the plans.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Doonie. I really struggle to reconcile all that. It's I'm worried like you, but at the same time, I am hopeful, because I see a lot of amazing kids. Some of them we had on the podcast as well.
Yeah,
doing amazing things. So there's always a balance there.
Yeah.
But we are doing our best, and we're trying to help the next generation.
I understand that,
do
but I
amazing
think there's
things
too many
and go to
restrictions
Mars.
placed. Like recently, there was a bit of a hullabaloo about some young fellow in some kind of a football game who got injured. gee whiz, that's terrible. It really is. But if you don't have these contact sports, the people don't know how to get injured and they don't know where the edge is. And if you don't know where the edge is, you don't know how to stop back from it. If you
I see what you're saying, yeah.
You know, like...
You can be physical, including sport, yeah, can be all padded.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, okay. Now, then just the last thing before we close is, how do people get in touch with you if you want them to do so?
They could... I've got an email address, which is a Gmail address, and I don't go there very often, and because it's Gmail, I don't care if spammers get it. So they could email me there, or they could... I've given people my Facebook, or I've given you, I think, my Facebook page, which I think is Doonie Benton.
Yeah, I've got it. We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and I don't mind if anybody contacts me on that. I don't care who contacts me. I could give you a phone number. I don't mind anything.
I'm looking at your page now, and your interest says studied how to get out of doing stuff at University of Life.
That's me.
Went to school of hard knocks.
Yep.
That's awesome. So yeah, that gives you a good profile description. So thank you very much for your time, Doonie. I'll put all that on the show notes for your episode page, and I really hope to see the movie that you made on YouTube sometime, and I'll link that as well.
Yeah, look, I will. I'll go back and have a think about that. I'll probably end up. Yeah. Another thing that our town is doing at the moment is we've got our finger in the pie for one of these Pick My projects, and if we can get that grant, we're going to build a website, a Bryagalong website, and on that we will put an application so that if anybody comes to our little town, they can walk around with their telephone and bring up little movies and little stories about each of the places in our town. And if that happens, we'll get the job of making the movies.
You should do a Kickstarter instead of waiting for a grant.
You just unleashed a can of worms.
Just saying. Kickstarter crowdsourcing, it's exactly made for this sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think. Have a look at it. All right, Doonie, thank you very much for your time. Have a excellent afternoon, Friday afternoon.
Look, I'm just really proud that you've taken the time to talk to me, Peter. Thank you very much. And also for the course, the opportunity to learn. It's sensational.
It's my pleasure.
And good talking to you too, Marcus.
You're welcome. Thank you. And likewise.
That's all for this episode. The notes for this episode that include links to many of the resources mentioned and information on how to get in touch with Doonie are available on our website, techexplorations.com/p/Stemiverse. Each episode comes with its own page on the Tech Explorations website and a goldmine of information in the notes. This Stemiverse podcast episode was produced by Tech Explorations. Do you have any questions or suggestions? Would you like to nominate a friend or colleague to be our guest? Please email us at pa@texplore.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes by searching for the name of our podcast, Stemiverse. That's STEMIVERSE. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.